Welcome back, everybody. Welcome back to the Canyon. Welcome back to another in the Chronicles of Servo tests. The servo has been dropped off here specifically for testing purposes. Look how perfectly that just lined up. Savox Monster Sb-2290SG. This is a beefy boy. This is a beefy boy in terms of how much of your wallet he will devour to get to where he is. The numbers claimed by Savox, we will be testing him at 3 voltages, 6 volts, 7.4 volts, 8.4 volts. Respectively, he is supposed to make 45 kilos, 55 kilos, and 70 kilos. 70 kilos, for those not familiar with the Freedom units, 972 ounces. That's a big number. Single lead. He is not direct power. He is powered off of the receiver. And momentarily here, you will see what I desperately hope is the finalized / semi-finalized iteration of the Crawler Canyon servo testing apparatus. The servo testing apparatus, as it sits, is a 30 amp power supply, which we will set to basically 3S voltage, middle of the pack 3S voltage. I guess I could go 11.6, it doesn't really matter. We are using down here, almost out of frame, a 1080 G2. Why, you ask? Here we have the adapter for direct powered servos, so we can run them on whatever we want. But down here we have this guy rated for 2S and 3S input, which means that if we're testing a 4S direct, we've got to figure something out. Here we go. I said semi-finalized. 1080 G2, everything is being run by a Vanquish VT1. We have channel 1 and channel 3 input ports here, because what we do is we take the servo that we want to test, we put him in place in the block, we mount him down. I'm going to take you along with me here. Should there be more edits? Probably. We're going to get this guy mounted, and we're going to hook him up, and we're going to take his wire, and we're going to plug it into channel 1. We're going to plug it into channel 1 the correct direction. So, that will center, which will allow us to just pop the horn on there, and then you can see the speed. I've tested a couple servos in my day. That's pretty fast on 6 volts. That's pretty fast. Now, what you will get with that same thing is, it's a Savox. Yeah. So, we also have a lead coming off of here, which allows us to attach the programmer. And because a G2 has 3 BEC voltage settings, we can set it to 6 volts, then 7.4 volts, then 8.4 volts, which was perfectly for this operation. The future will be moved around. We'll probably have another speed control installed next to this one. We will use a Radiolink Cool 9030 to test 4S. But 4S is not one of the things that we are worried about today. We were worried about 6, 7.4, and 8.4. The Hobbywing can test them all. We used to do tests going straight off the power supply, but I got to the conclusion that isn't a real world, like, you don't have this in your rig, you have that, or something like that. So we might as well run off of that and see what we get. This is set at 11.4. Let's get this hooked up the rest of the way. Oh, because what I wanted to mention is we do this. Then when we're running it, we put it over here, and then I just do this. Right? It's like instantaneous, so we should get a better torque measurement. I need to do little tiny stuff like get things recentered, and then we'll start doing pulls. So while some of it is not fully finalized, we hope to work out some kinks in the future, like not just having the motor laying there, and also like probably a cool 9030 where the motor is, and then I can just move plugs around. I think will be really handy for 4S testing operations, but it all works. It's not mounted in any way, so that's why I made sure not to put anything in the output out of it, so we don't rip the whole thing apart. We've made sure everything's tight. I double checked. Yes, this is already set to 6 volts, so that we're starting in the right place. We turn this on. I have this configured to pull. So all that is left for me to say is Savox Sb-2290, first pull at 6 volts. And then I push this button. And, 682.8. That's a big 6 volt number, man. That's a big number. I have to keep reminding myself. $150. Second pull at 6 volts. That's a big number. 681.8. Did it just do 2 pulls 1 ounce apart? Yes. Yes, it did. I've just made an on-the-fly decision. And in that decision, what we're going to do is we're going to do these 3 pulls. And here's the third pull at 6 volts. Let's get that done. 684.3. And usually I would run through all the math and do a hullabaloo. But instead, I'm going to switch that to 7.4. We're going to do 3 pulls. I'm going to switch it to 8.4. We're going to do 3 pulls. And then, and only then, will we break down the numbers. So just like that, because we don't have to do a Bluetooth or anything like that. We've just got a little box. We plug it in, we go to parameter 15, we go plus, we go enter, and we do it again. If this was done without the edit, it takes about 10 seconds. So, as promised, first pull, 7.4. This thing's strong, man. 768.7. Oh yeah, that's visible. Y'all can see that, right? Raise your hand if you can see that. So easy peasy. Oh, this is just, man, we're rocking a system. Second pull, 7.4. 774.7. You hear that thing. But doesn't matter. Like 775 ounces at 7.4 that's over 50 kilo. That's got to be in around that 55 kilo. There's a correction factor. We'll talk about that. Third and final pull, 7.4 volts. It is a noisy boy. 766.8. That's 0.1% variance, something like that, 0.15. So actually, you know what? I'm going to show you. Here's the lead. All right, I'm pushing. It's just out of frame, right? It's not a perfect system. We power off the speed control. We plug in the program box. We turn the speed control back on. We go to parameter 15. We go value. Parameter 14. We go to value 3. Okay. Power it off. How long did that take? And 15 is freewheeling. Like, that doesn't matter. We're not attached. We turn the speed control back on. We tear this. I get the radio right here. I say to you all out there, Savox 2290, first pull at 8.4 volts. Now, we're not getting 972. Why are we not getting 972? We're getting 806.8. Because this is what I wanted. When I set out to build this is what I wanted. That 806.8, and by extension, the 804.6, that's not just a number. That's a real number. That you can take that number to the bank. Because if you take this out on the rocks and you hook it up to whatever your ESC is and you torque it 796.4, that's real. It's piped through a Hobbywing 1080. And this is a G2, so it has a 5 amp. So I did not look at these numbers once. I'm too excited. Oh, we should. We would be remiss, right? Generally, we show the speed. I myself would probably just run this thing at 7.4. I could make an argument that that's too fast. It's loud. That's the exchange you make. It's loud and it's expensive. So you can have strong, quiet, and cheap. I guess pick two. Can you be strong and cheap? Yes. Can you be strong and quiet? Yes. Can you be quiet and cheap? Yes. I think it needs amended. This is Savox. Sounds like a Savox. You generally don't want your servo to be like 3 times the volume level of your motor. Now, there's a cut, because I've got to do math. So our little monster friend, the Savox Sb-2290SG, did 3 pulls at 6 volts, 7.4 volts, and 8.4 volts. At 6 volts, there's a correction factor that has to take place here, ladies and gentlemen, because we have not managed to find a suitable horn. You see, there's only one hole that gets used, that one right there. That hole is at 24 millimeters, and we're measuring ounce inches, and an inch is at 25.4 millimeters. So we get the raw numbers. At 6 volts, it averaged 683 ounces at 24 millimeters. We multiply that by a correction factor of 0.925, 92.5%, as torque moves linearly, which will tell us what it would do at an inch, which is 632 ounces. Those are respectively 49.2 and 45.5 kilograms. At 6 volts, that's just outright impressive. Like, that's strong, taking into account the fact that this servo is $150. And I personally don't recommend Savox servos for crawlers, period. They're too loud. Crawlers tend to be quiet. Some of them are very quiet. At 7.4 volts, the average uncorrected was 770 ounces, corrected to 712. That is 55.5 kilos and 51.3 kilos, respectively. It's a decent jump. It's a decent jump. We're looking at about 80 ounces, give or take. So 12% jump from 6 to 7.4. Now at 8.4, it averaged 802.6. I was supposed to round that to 803. We do the ounces and on the ounce averages in whole numbers, so ignore the 0.6. 803, which corrected to 742. That is respectively 57.8 and 53.5 kilos. So here's the deal. I think this servo wants 7.4. I think it can handle 8.4. I don't think that in a real-world situation, I think if you tested this under perfect conditions on the bench, yes, you could hit 972, probably. This thing is realistically hitting very high 7s, low 8s, operating through a BEC. It had warmed up the tiniest little bit, like it was just above skin temperature after the pulls, and when it was done, there's so much heatsink area here. It's cool. It feels cool to the touch. So this is a servo that I would definitely put into the running for, I mean, to stay relevant, let's say rock racer bouncer. If you're bashing something, yeah. Like if there's a name and before that name it says Arma, yeah, you can absolutely put one of those in there and do damage. That is at 7.4, which is where I would run it. high sevens, mid to high sevens. You're looking at 750 ounces consistently an average, and it should be able to do it all day long. Any of the amp numbers, the amp readings will be in the editor catches those. I didn't even bother to look. And honestly, I've started to place a lot less importance on it because the state of the guts, both inside the servo and inside the speed controls, when you see a servo that, given unregulated, is pulling like 9 amps, I have several of those servos in service, primarily for testing purposes. Servos like the DS Power DSB 009. That servo was hitting high 8s. The Amazon Zosuke Animos Blue Case, the 35 kg Pro, which is actually a 45 kg, like 8 amp pulls, hitting 8 amps. I am running them off of, one is running off of a 1080 and one is running off of a Fusion with absolutely no problems whatsoever. So those both have 3 amp BECs and no brownouts, no nothing. Like if it blows something up in the future, I will know why, but it has been flawless in practice now. The drawback to the Savox is the Pick 3. $150 for that servo. Can you get 750 ounces at 7.4 volts for less money? Yeah, you can. This guy from Flash Hobby will get you real close, and that was $40. This claims 50 kg at 8.4, so mid to high 6s, but mid to high 6s for $40. Mid to high 7s for $150. You can almost buy 4 of these for the cost of one of those. Now, there will be a warranty standing behind that, and you can't argue the numbers. Consistent, strong, quick, loud, expensive. If you know what you're getting into, I don't recommend against it. I do, personally, I wouldn't put this in a crawler. Shortly after this filming is concluded, I am mounting this servo in a crawler. Like I said, this is here on loan. So, there you go. The 2290. Almost dug from the reliquary compared to what we're looking at nowadays. Any servo that has a torque spec at 6 volts, we know we're digging into crates a little bit. This is a little less Blu-ray and a little more vinyl, because they're not doing that anymore. Like, everything is, like the guy you just saw, everything is touting 8.4 volts. Volt up. Everybody's volting up. Yeah. I mean, it does the deal. Does it technically make manufacturer target? No. And the ounces per US dollar is going to be pretty bad. We will take the highest one, so the 803 divided by $149. That's 5.4 ounces per dollar. Let's just do back of the napkin. I'm not like an affiliate. I'm not a dealer for Flash Hobby. It just happens to be here. So if it hits its numbers, which I think it will, we're looking at about, let's call it 650 ounces divided by $40. That's 16 ounces per dollar. So once you get up into the ether, it gets a lot more expensive. It's a lot cheaper to make the ounces down at the bottom than it is to make the ounces up at the top. So the Savox is a strong servo, and I think it will remain a strong servo, and it would serve you well. Anything over 500 ounces is surplus, and at 8.4, I think this thing is too fast. I think at 7.4, the speed is a little bit better. But I wouldn't put it in a servo, but I'm not telling you, I wouldn't put it in a crawler, but I'm not telling you not to put it in a crawler. That's entirely up to you. The servo made its numbers. It's strong. You know it's got a big top. It's got a big top. So you know there's a gear train in there. This thing should be good for years. So I'll leave all decisions up to you. You can take with the numbers and do with them what you will. Ooh, almost got that perfectly centered. I will see you all in the next one. Whatever server review, product test, bashing around, smashing the canyon, doing whatever. Y'all come back and see us. Make sure to comment below, like, subscribe, etc., etc., etc. If you are a Savox devotee and you run Savox in your crawlers, why? Tell me why. Tell me why. Because they're so very noisy. How do you get past that? That's a thing I would like to know. Let me know in the comments below. We'll see you next time here from the canyon. Susan, what? Susan, what? Spin us out!